Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. I hope all of you are fine and doing well. We are going through our second lesson, Jinnah's Vision of Pakistan, and almost half of this lesson was completed in my previous lecture. Now today inshallah we'll complete the remaining half of the lesson, which starts from these words. The next thing that strikes me is, here again it is a legacy which has been passed on to us. So the Qaid is now going to point out another issue, another problem, and he says that the next point that occurs to him, that comes to his mind, that strikes me, is that comes to my mind. And he explains that again this issue is not a new one. It is not an issue of these times. It has been handed down to us again from our posterity, from our past. It's a legacy. A legacy is something that is passed on to the next generation, the inheritance. So along with many other things, good and bad, has arrived this great evil, the evil of nepotism and jobbery. So he says that there are many good and bad things that have come down to us from our past, and among them is this evil of nepotism and jobbery. Nepotism is undue favor of one's near and dear ones. Nepotism, undue favor of our relatives, our friends. And jobbery is unauthoritative or illegal way of gaining personal interest through office, through authority. So he says that these two evils have also come down to us. I want to make it quite clear that I shall never tolerate any kind of jobbery, nepotism, or any influence, directly or indirectly, brought to bear upon me. And he makes it very clear, without mincing words, that he is not going to tolerate to stand jobbery or nepotism or any other influence that may be used to pressurize him directly or indirectly. Whenever I will find that such a practice is in vogue or is continuing anywhere, low or high, I shall certainly not countenance it. They say, well, if he finds out that some such a practice is in vogue means is in fashion, it is being used. In vogue is basically in fashion, or is continuing anywhere, low or high. Low or high, at any level, at any place, whether among low officials or high officials, I shall certainly not countenance it. To countenance is to ignore, to overlook. He says, no, I'm not going to ignore it, I'm not going to overlook it. Whenever I find that such a practice is there, such a practice of jobbery and nepotism is there, I would stand against it. I know there are people who do not quite agree with the division of India and the partition of the Punjab and Bengal. Now he comes to another point. He says that, well, all of us know that Pakistan came into being as a result of a parliamentary struggle. So it was a democratic way of achieving a new state. So in democracy, there is always some difference of opinion. So he says that, well, there are people, he knows it, he is aware that there are people who are not in favor of the partition of India and partition of Punjab and Bengal. Much has been said against it, but now that it has been accepted, it is the duty of every one of us to loyally abide by it and honorably act according to the agreement, which is now final and binding on all. Says, well, what is gone is gone. What has happened has happened. Now that the partition of the subcontinent has been carried out and it has been accepted. Now it is the responsibility of all the people of the subcontinent to loyally, to faithfully abide by it, to follow it, and honorably act according to the agreement. And in an honorable way, they must follow this agreement, they must obey this agreement, which is now final and binding on all, because it is the final decision and now it is binding. We are bound. It is now essential for all, it is now compulsory for all to go with it. But you must remember, as I have said, that this mighty revolution that has taken place is unprecedented. But he says that all of us must keep in mind that it is a mighty means very powerful, very strong revolution. A revolution is basically a very great and sudden change. So this sudden and great change has struck us that, and it has no precedent, it has no parallel, it has no other example. It is matchless, unprecedented, matchless. One can quite understand the feeling that exists between the two communities, wherever one community is in majority and the other is in minority. It says that there are at least two communities, Muslim communities and Hindu communities, and in almost all the parts of the subcontinent they are living side by side. However, in some areas, one particular community is in majority and the other one is in minority, whereas in some other areas the other one is in majority and the first one is in minority. So he says that the feeling that exists between these two communities on the basis of their being in majority or in minority is quite understandable and well known. But the question is whether it was possible or practicable to act otherwise than what has been done. But he poses a question. He says, well, this decision was made, this agreement was reached because there seemed no other solution to the problem. No other solution was possible or practicable. That's why this decision was made. A division has to take place. It was inevitable for the subcontinent to undergo partition. Any idea of a united India could never have worked, and in my judgment, it would have led us to terrific disaster. He says that united India could not have survived. That solution could not have been possible, and it would have led us to terrific disaster. Very horrible disaster. A disaster is a very great crisis, a very great storm. So he says that such a decision of united India might have led us to terrific, horrible, stormy situation, a very great crisis. Maybe that view is correct, maybe it is not. And you know that Qaeda believed in democracy. That's why, again, he says, well, it's just an opinion. This opinion may be correct or incorrect. That remains to be seen. Only history will prove it. Only future will prove it whether this decision was correct or incorrect. All the same, in this division, it was impossible to avoid the question of minorities being in one dominion or the other. All the same means, anyhow, however, all the same. In this division, it was impossible to avoid the question of minority being in one dominion. Dominion means state, country, or the other. Now that this partition was carried out, it was inevitable, unavoidable that in both the states, some minorities were to remain there. Some Muslims were to remain in India, and some Hindus and Sikhs were to remain in Pakistan. Now that was unavoidable. It was unavoidable. It was inevitable because 100% migration of the minority community from one state, from one dominion to the other was not possible. There is no other solution. Now, what shall we do? Now, if we want to make this great state of Pakistan happy and prosperous, we should wholly and solely concentrate on the well-being of the people and especially of the masses and the poor. Now, he says that, well, Muslims are in majority in Pakistan. Non-Muslims, including Hindus and Sikhs, are in minority. Now, what shall we do? Now, what's our responsibility? Now, if we want to make this great state of Pakistan happy and prosperous, he says, well, now we are the nationals of, we are the inhabitants of the state of Pakistan. And now our goal, our target must be to make our country happy and prosperous. Prosperous basically means financially happy, financially strong. We should wholly and solely concentrate on the well-being of the people. So now, with full concentration, solely means only, with only this thought in our mind, with only this concentration, that we are to make our people happy and prosperous, and especially of the masses and the poor. And among people, especially, we must cater to the needs of the masses, general public, and the poor people of Pakistan. If you will work in cooperation, forgetting the past, burying the hatchet, you are bound to succeed. He says, well, for this, we'll have to work in cooperation. We'll have to work with one another, forgetting the past. And whatever differences, whatever disputes existed in the past, we'll have to forget it, all of them. Burying the hatchet. Now here he is using an idiom. Bury the hatchet is ignoring the past, forgetting the past, especially forgetting the past disputes. You are bound to succeed. So if we do that, we will, inshallah, succeed. Bound to, essentially, necessarily, we will succeed. If you change your past and work together in a spirit that every one of you, no matter to what community he belonged, no matter what relations he had with you in the past, no matter what is his color, caste or creed, is first, second and last a citizen of this state with equal rights, privileges and obligation, there will be no end to the progress you will make. So now he is presenting, he is offering a piece of advice to all the people of Pakistan. He says that past can't be changed, but our attitude may be changed. Our attitude towards our past may be changed. If you change your past, so in that way we may try to change our past even and work together. So now we are to work in cooperation, we are to work together in a spirit, with this spirit, with this view, with this thought that every one of you, no matter to what community he belongs, he may belong to the Muslim community or he may belong to the non-Muslim community, no matter what relations he had with you in the past. And different communities might have had strained relations in the past, tense relations in the past. There might have been tension in their relations, but now we'll have to forget all that. No matter what is his color, caste or creed, and without keeping in mind the differences on the basis of color, on the basis of race, on the basis of caste, on the basis of family background, on the basis of faith and religion, is first, second and last a citizen of this state. We will have to keep in mind that now all of us are the citizens of Pakistan, nationals of Pakistan. Whether we are Muslim or Hindus or Sikhs or Christian or whatever, with equal rights. And as a citizen of this great state of Pakistan, we have equal rights and privileges. Privileges are also special rights. So all of us have got special rights in this state of Pakistan, and obligation. Obligations are responsibility, duty. There will be no end to the progress you will make. So if we keep all this in mind, Pakistan will make progress with great speed, speedily, and there will be no end to the progress that the state of Pakistan will make. I cannot emphasize it too much. Now this sentence, I cannot emphasize it too much, is almost equal to saying that it goes without saying. It is self-evident. I cannot emphasize it too much. There is no need of putting more emphasis here because it is a self-evident fact. It is a truth. It is an understandable thing. We should begin to work in that spirit. He says that we'll have to develop that spirit of cooperation among ourselves. And in the course of time, all these angularities of the majority and the minority communities, the Hindu community and the Muslim community, because even as regards Muslim, you have Pathans, Punjabis, Shias, Sunnis, and so on. And among the Hindus, you have Brahmins, Vaishnavas, Khatris, also Bengalis, Madrasis, and so on, will vanish. So he says, well, if we have the spirit of cooperation in mind, in ourselves, inshallah, with the passage of time, in the course of time, with the passage of time, as time passes, all these angularities, differences, disputes. So all these differences of the majority and the minority community, the Hindu community and Muslim community. Basically, he is pointing out these two communities. But he again says that these two communities are not the only communities in Pakistan. Even within these communities, there are sub-communities, because Muslims have Pathans and Punjabis on the basis of different regions, different provinces. Muslims have Shias and Sunnis on the basis of different religious faiths, different sects, and so on. And then he points out that even Hindus are not monolithic. They are not the same. They have their own castes, Brahmins, Vaishnavas, Khatris. These are their castes. And then even among Hindus, there are people who are Bengalis and there are people who are Madrasis. So he says that such differences exist. They are there. But with the passage of time, if we have the spirit of cooperation in ourselves, with the passage of time, we will forget all these differences, and all these differences will vanish. To vanish means to disappear. All these differences will disappear, and we will become only and only Pakistanis. Indeed, if you ask me, this has been the biggest hindrance in the way of India to attain freedom and independence. And he says that in his personal opinion, the most important and the biggest hurdle, hindrance, barrier, hurdle, obstacle in the way of India to attain freedom, to achieve freedom, to win freedom and independence was this one, that the people of the subcontinent were not united. They didn't have the spirit of cooperation. That's why it took them a very long time to get rid of the British. Else we would have been a free people long ago. It says otherwise. Else here means otherwise. Otherwise, the people of the subcontinent might have won their freedom a very long time ago. No power can hold another nation, especially a nation of 400 million souls, in subjection, because no power of the world has the capacity, has the power to keep a nation of 400 million souls, 400 million people. That was the population of the subcontinent at that time, in subjection, slavery. So no power could have made them slaves. No power could have enslaved them. Nobody could have conquered you. It couldn't have been possible for any power to conquer the people of subcontinent, to overcome them, to defeat them, and even if it had happened, nobody could have continued its hold on you for any length of time but for this. And even if that could have been possible, it couldn't have been possible for that power to keep that hold, to keep that authority or rule for a long time. But for these differences, but for this disunity that was there among the people of the subcontinent. Therefore, we must learn a lesson from this. So now it's time for us to learn a lesson from our past experiences. You are free. You are free to go to your temple. You are free to go to your mosque or to any other place of worship in this state of Pakistan. So he says, yes, now all of us are the citizens of Pakistan. And as such, all of us are free to pray in any way our religion asks us to pray. That's why he says, well, the Hindus and Sikhs are free to go to your temple, to go to their temple. Similarly, Muslims are free to go to their mosque, or if there are other communities, they are free to go to their places of worship. You may belong to any religion or caste or creed. That has nothing to do with the business of the state. And here he makes it very plain, very clear, that people may belong to one religion or the other one. People may come from one caste or another caste. They may have one faith or the other faith. But all these differences have nothing to do with the state of Pakistan. The state of Pakistan will be above these differences, and as citizens of Pakistan, all will be equal in the eye of the law. No, now I think we should keep that in front of us as our idea, and you will find that in the course of time, Hindus would cease to be Hindus and Muslims would cease to be Muslims, not in the religious sense, because that is the personal faith of each individual, but in the critical sense as citizens of the state. So he says that this ideal must be kept in front of us. We must keep in view this ideal, and inshallah, if we have this ideal in view, with the passage of time, we'll see that Hindus will no longer be Hindus. Cease means to end, to come to an end, finish. So Hindus will no longer be Hindus and Muslims will no longer be Muslims. And he makes it clear that he is not talking about religion, because Hinduism and Islam are two totally different religions, and the religious differences will remain there. But as citizens of Pakistan, these differences will melt down, they will vanish, they will disappear, because that is the personal faith of each individual. The Qaid says that religion is a personal faith that belongs to the individual, but in the political sense as citizens of the state. But Hindus and Muslims may have the same opinion on political issues, on other social issues as citizens of the state. So with the passage of time, these differences will come to an end. Well, gentlemen, I do not wish to take up any more of your time, and thank you again for the honor you have done to me. So here, now Qaid is winding up his speech. He says, well, he doesn't want to take some more time, and he thanks all the members of the Constituent Assembly who elected him as the President of the Parliament or Constituent Assembly. So he thanks them for that. I shall always be guided by the principles of justice and fair play, without any, as is put in the political language, prejudice or ill will, in other words, partiality or favoritism. And he assures all the members that he will always be guided by the principles of justice and fair play. As the President of the Assembly, of the Constituent Assembly, and as the Governor General of the state of Pakistan, he will be guided, he will be led always by the principles of justice, equity and fair play, without any, as is put in the political language. He says that as in political terms, we say without any prejudice. Prejudice is partiality. Prejudice is to be partial to someone or against someone, or ill will having negative thoughts, negative views of others. In other words, partiality or favoritism. So he says that he is not going to be partial to one community or the other community, to one individual or the other individual, and he is not going to favor one community or the other one, or one individual or the other. My guiding principle will be justice and complete impartiality. And again he emphasizes, he stresses that he will be only and only led by justice and impartially. And I'm sure that with your support and cooperation, I can look forward to Pakistan becoming one of the greatest nations of the world. And he is quite hopeful. And he, in other words, he asks for help and cooperation from other members of the Constituent Assembly. He asks for support and cooperation. I can look for, and he says that he very hopefully can wait for Pakistan to become a very great nation of the world. So here his speech comes to an end, and you can see that very brilliantly and very sincerely he pointed out some of the main issues that were before the assembly at that time, and he very sincerely offered some pieces of advice also. Now it is up to us to take those advice seriously, those pieces of advice seriously, and try to make Pakistan happy and prosperous. So that's the end of our today's lecture. Inshallah, in our next lecture, we'll start the next lesson. Thank you very much.